How's it, everybody? This is a story about Kaha Street. When I was a kid, we lived on Kaha Street, and Kaha Street is in Kailua, and it's a really long street. It runs all the way from Kauai Nui down towards the beach, has several cross streets, and then it turns, kind of sharp bend, and then the street runs parallel with Kalaheo Avenue, which runs parallel to Kailua Beach. So we lived right on that bend. One night, the teenager down the road, it was ripping down the street, missed the turn, plowed our mailbox, plowed my mom's car that was parked up on the road. Big commotion. Everybody comes out, neighbors, everything. Apparently it wakes up the whole neighborhood. I slept through it. But the next morning, I get up and I see my dad, and he's walking up our driveway, and he's got some stuff in his hand, but one of the hands, he's got a shovel, and he's walking up to the mailbox. And so I'm watching him walk up there, and then I notice our mailbox, and our mailbox is leaned over. And so I say to my mom, I said, where's Dad going? And what happened to our mailbox? And she's like, she tells me the whole story about what happened, big commotion and all that. And then she says, I can't believe you slept through that. And I did, I don't know. So anyway, my dad goes up to the mailbox, and our next door neighbor went up there too. Both of our mailboxes were mounted on the same post. So when the guy took out our mailbox, he took out the neighbor's too. So I guess they were up there and they were going to try and straighten this thing out. And, they were just sort of shoveling whatever was there into this hole, I guess. And they got it lined up and it stayed. So they're like, okay, good. So, but a couple days later, it goes down again. So I guess they realize they're going to have to do something more permanent. So my dad goes back up there with a shovel, and the neighbor goes up, and you can see them up there, and they're digging. And I guess they figured they needed to, enlarge this hole, maybe put some cement or something in there to hold it, something permanent. And I can see them up there. And then I hear my dad yelling for my mom, and he's yelling for her to come up there and to come up there now. So my mom goes up there, and it's my mom, my dad, and the next door neighbor. And they're looking down into this hole, and all three of them back up like this, and they do this. Well, they found Evie, human bones, under where the mailbox was. So they pile it, all the dirt, everything, put it back in, tamp it down, leave it alone. Not too long after that, stuff starts happening. So mainly to my brother. And, I was probably 10 or 11 at the time, and he's, a year and a half older than I am. And so stuff starts happening to him. And in our yard, we had very mature trees. We had a huge banyan, and three really, really, really tall coconut trees. And then we had a Norfolk pine. One day, he climbs this Norfolk. And when he gets to the top, or almost to the top, he falls. But he doesn't hit branches that would slow him down, maybe break the fall a little bit. No, boom, down to the ground, laying there, moaning. My parents probably, thinking, I hope he didn't break his back, something like that. I don't know. He was okay. He was really sore, but he was okay. A little while after that, my brother, he's coming out of the shower, and he goes to push the shower door open, and the glass part shatters, and it just cuts his hands all up. He's bleeding, and it's just blood everywhere, glass everywhere, and he's screaming from the bathroom. My parents go in there, glass everywhere, and he's bloody and freaked. And, I don't know what they did. Probably took him to the emergency room or something. I don't know. He was fine. He was fine. But then, not too long after that, he had gone surfing. And we were only about a block and a half from the beach. And, we were down there all the time. So he was coming home one day, and he was walking down our driveway, and he had a surfboard in his hand. And one of the tall coconut trees drops a coconut, and it lands square on his head, nails him on the head, boom, gone, out cold. He was okay, but he's scared now. He's scared to go anywhere. He's scared something's going to happen to him because he keeps getting hurt. And so he doesn't want to go anywhere. While this is happening, stuff is going on next door at the next door neighbor's house. And the wife was diagnosed with cancer. And then one afternoon, my mom and dad were at work. But from our house, when you come outside, you could see directly to the neighbor's house. And the neighbors the way their house was set up was from our yard, you could see into their big picture window to their living room. And I had heard all this yelling and fighting, and it just sounded like a really volatile fight going on. And so I went to look, and I saw the neighbor in there, and he was probably in his early 20s or something. But he's in the living room, and he's waving a gun around, and he's throwing his fists around, or his other fist around, and he's fighting with somebody who's not there. There's nobody in the room there that I can see, just him. And he's screaming, and he's yelling, and he's swearing, and it scared me. And I went home, and I called my mom, and I said, there's something wrong with the neighbor. And I told her what I had seen and what I had heard. And, she told me, okay, just stay away from there. Don't go over there, especially since he had this gun, too. And she said that she would call the parents. So I don't know who she called, the mom or the dad. I don't know. Somebody came home to help him. And also what was going on was my parents were fighting all the time. They didn't get along. Everything was just this huge tension in the house. My dad actually lost his job during that time too. He got another job later, but when all this was happening, he had lost his job. So all kinds of stuff going on. Nothing happened to me. Nothing happened to me at all. But it was like this, I don't know, this is like a bad cloud landed on us. It was just happening everywhere. And so I guess my mom had called her cousin, my Auntie Pat. And my Auntie Pat knew about the accident itself because her sister-in-law lived across the street from us. And when the accident happened, all the neighborhood came out, apparently. So she knew about the accident. But my mom was telling her about all the stuff that was going on. And so my Auntie Pat said, you know what, okay, let me see if I can find somebody. And Auntie Pat at the time worked at Ulumau Village. And Ulumau Village isn't there any longer. Now it's Hei'ia Park. But Auntie Pat worked there. And so she said, let me see if I can find somebody to help you. So I guess one day Auntie Pat calls up my mom and she says, I'm going to bring a kahuna. I'm going to bring a kahuna to the house. And the one thing is, though, you're not supposed to tell her where anything happened. You don't give her any kind of details about anything. Just let her do her thing. Like, okay. So my mom told us the same thing. And in fact, she even told us, don't say anything to her unless she speaks to you first. So, okay. So the day that this lady is arriving, Auntie Pat pulls up and she's got her in the car with her. And they get out of the car. And I just remember her being a very large figure. Now I was a kid, so, I don't know. But to me, she was very large, statuesque. And she had on a dark mu'u, I believe it was black. But the first thing she did when she got out of the car was she took her slippers off. Slippers in Hawaii are the same thing as flip-flops to people on the mainland. So she gets out of the car and she takes her slippers off. And immediately she starts feeling the ground with her feet. And she walks into the middle of the yard and she goes throughout the yard. And the whole time she's feeling this with her feet. She also had like a sash thing with her. And so she'd get to certain areas and she'd stop and she'd feel. And then she'd run this sash, she'd pull it along the ground. And she did this throughout the whole yard. And then after a little while, she goes up to the mailbox. And she's up at the mailbox for kind of a long time. And I can see her, she's got her eyes closed. Every now and then you can see her mouth moving, but you can't hear what she's saying. But she's up there for a really long time. And then eventually she comes back into the yard. And then she goes to all the locations where my brother had gotten her in the yard. And she did the same thing. She felt everything. You could see her lips moving, but you couldn't hear what she was saying. And she ran the sash on the ground. After that, when she was plowing the yard, we went into the house. And same thing. She went to all the places where stuff had happened in the house and did the same thing, blessed the whole house. And there were a couple of things that she stopped and talked about specifically that were in our house, like a dresser that had been passed down through the family, petroglyphs that were made with sand, olivine sand from the Big Island. She went to these specific things and to every location in the house. So when she was blessing the house, we all went back outside. And then she told us that our yard, the entire property, had bones underneath the soil. And apparently, so does most of Kailua, which we hadn't heard. I mean, the whole thing was new to us as far as, the bone thing. So she went on to tell us that apparently way back in the day, and I can't say that I know the history of, back when Ali'i and stuff, and I don't know the history of Kailua as far as that goes. But she said that they used to battle, and they would battle in from the beach area, and unless you were a high ranking, where you fell, where you were killed, that's where you stayed, or that's where you were buried. Now, if you were high ranking or Ali'i or anything like that, they would come and they'd retrieve your body and they'd take the bones, but not for everybody. So she told us that Kailua has got bones in most of it because of these battles. And then that all really made sense as to why my brother was the one that was stuff was happening to, and the neighbor next door, because they were young men, and in a battle, that's who went to war, right? So that's the Kaha Street story. So if you liked it, please like